Alrighty, another day. Mormons. You guys are haters. I was able to talk with the federal government census worker concerning their statistical data regarding abuse that goes on in the United States. My apartment was selected, and it was 6 months ago when I was first selected. So I got a follow-up comment or follow-up contact last night. I ended up missing Rachel Maddow's breaking news of what was going on. But that phone call helped me realize that Mormons, not just the personal situation that I'm having here in my living arrangements and with the West Valley City Police, but also with you Mormons here on my channel on the internet, on YouTube. You guys are committing a hate crime against me. Hate crimes, technically. And so, yeah, I contacted West Valley City's Internal Affairs again to inform them of the 4 hate crimes that their officers got themselves involved with when they failed to take my case and instead chose to side with my abusers. The first one is religious affiliation. When Bishop Reed Hammond gave me the ultimatum threat, he was committing the hate crime of religious hatred, because I was promoting the Book of Mormon as the official doctrine of the Mormon Church regarding the fall of Adam, not Eve. And that went against Bishop Hammond's religious beliefs, and he made a threat against my different viewpoint. That is a religious hate crime. That's felony material. So yes, Bishop Reed Hammond, you have now contributed to the criminal behavior of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Also, as you guys may have known, if you've been watching my videos, that the state of Utah, and the LDS Church was a part of this, because the church controls the government, and the church was involved in my being arrested here in Utah. I never got a trial. I never pled guilty, and so they didn't want it to go to court because there was no case, because I'm trying to petition for my children being taken away from me. I wanted my children back. And so for 6 years, the Mormons ordered me to be removed from society. And I told you the Deseret News was ordered by the church to have all of my comments removed from the Deseret News. All the archived comments gone. And that, too, is a religious hate crime committed against me, and where I was also, because of my political affiliations, which is non-partisan. People don't understand that. People think that if I'm anti-Republican, that therefore I must be a snowflake, libtard Democrat. No, I'm not. I am non-partisan. So, if I were Democrat, it would still be a hate crime. But I'm not a Democrat either. It's still a hate crime. And hate crime is that of being of a different political affiliation. So my 6 years incarceration without a trial was a hate crime against me by the state of Utah, because I was a political prisoner. they knew it full well that I was against the Republican Party president who was in office at that time, and going against the Republican Party Utah, who had failed to help me get my kids back. So that's number 2 hate crime that's going on with you Mormons. And then, because of the hate crimes involved in my removal from society, they abused psychiatry. And I had found a link yesterday by a doctor who said that pharmaceutical companies are murdering people with mental diagnoses, and thus psychiatrists are perpetuating this murder, this genocidal murder of those diagnosed with mental diagnosis. And so, as I've mentioned, the state of Utah, in order to lock me away from society, had to create a mental diagnosis, because I don't have the symptoms of a mental diagnosis. And therefore they had to create one, and they used the good old Russian creation back in the 60s, and which here in the States they call it a spectrum schizophrenia rather than a sluggish schizophrenia. It's the same thing. Sluggish schizophrenia was understood as something that may not exhibit symptoms, thus the fraud of the diagnosis and why it's internationally banned. But it can appear at any time, and so therefore the person has to be removed from society and drugged to be controlled, to try to, prevent the onset of this mysteriously appearing illness. And so in my case, my diagnosis was for the one-time incident of when I went out and gave my petition for a redress of grievances called Modern American Utopia. And so, yeah, and I'm an old man. Schizophrenia is a young man's disease, thus sluggish, and only occurred this one-time incident. And they tried to force me on medications while I was incarcerated at the state hospital. They failed the first time because I was holding a religious fast, and they came after me for that, saying that I was trying to hurt myself by going without food for a day. Besides, if I was protesting with a hunger strike, that also would not qualify them to drug me, but that would have, because the hospital doesn't care about my rights. And so if I were to protest, nobody would ever know about it, and thus they could silence me and force me on a tube to feed me in those circumstances, and thus force me on drugs. But no, it was a religious fast that I decided, hey, I can do a religious fast to show my protest. Sure enough, I did, and sure enough, the committee at the hospital said, we can't force them on meds for this. Religion is not something to, discriminate somebody for and hate for. And so Mark Shurtleff, the main person overseeing the prosecution of me, had changed the venue to the courts to try to force me on meds. And that backfired on him, because my lawyer finally did his job, court-appointed lawyer, and brought to the attention of the court that one of the charges wasn't quite accurate. The LDS Church was considered a government entity, which is the case, but you can't have it on record in a court of law. And so Shurtleff's trumped up charges, bogus charges, were being thwarted, and we were going after the other two as well. If Shurtleff didn't stop and drop the forced medication hearing. And so yeah, he dropped the forced medication hearing. The one charge had to be dropped, and he created it as a Class B misdemeanor charge of some type of disturbance. You know, ooh, I disturbed the church by petitioning for a redress. And and so yeah, he ordered the psychiatrist and the hospital get him on meds. And so again, I was forced into a forced med hearing, did nothing. You know, I successfully thwarted them twice. I stayed in my room. I did not affiliate with anybody. I did not cause a threat to myself or others. They just said, oh, we're having a forced med hearing on you. For what? Oh, and guess what? They just happened to have fired the patient advocate. You know, when at forced med hearing, we get a patient advocate. They fired him. And so I had nobody. That's a violation of the hospital policy in regards to a forced med hearing. So yeah, this was all rigged. And yes, they, you know, the psychiatrist and my caseworker both united together. Oh, he's scary. We're afraid for our lives. And yeah, I stayed away from him. I stayed in my room. I minded my own business. And so yeah, forced on meds. And I almost lost my life because of the drug they got me put on. And that's why I have the belly that I have, rather than being a fit athlete as I used to be. 6 years of incarceration and being drugged resulted in the body changes. And yeah, the major hate crimes here in Utah, guys. Major hate crimes by Mormons. And so yeah, this is the mental or the hate crime of going a hatred against persons with disabilities. See, because they rigged it to remove me from society with the internationally banned diagnosis, it still classified me as a protected group, as a person with a disability. And so the officers here in Utah, West Valley City, knew this. As the officer says, what is your diagnosis? She can't ask that, because that now puts me in jeopardy, in a vulnerable position, because the officer is now understood as coming after me for my mental diagnosis, even though it was an internationally banned one. So yes, I'm being attacked for my fake diagnosis, which classifies me as a vulnerable disability group. And so there's 3 felony hate crimes committed against me during all this. Mormons, Utah Mormons, committing these hate crimes against me. And then the 4th one. There's this thing called sexual orientation in the hate crimes. People cannot discriminate or commit abusive crimes based on a person's sexual orientation. And you don't have to be gay. You can be heterosexual to have a hate crime committed against you. And so yes, what was I filing a complaint for here in the state of Utah and in West Valley City? My wife had taken away my kids. And so because of my sexual orientation being heterosexual, having a family, I was discriminated, and hate crimes were committed against me because of my sexual orientation, heterosexual. And so here in Utah, in West Valley City, the officers by the other hate crimes committed against me. And when I had told them that my former wife, that the case management had contributed to our divorce, they were the cause of separating us. And that's the video I did about dividing and conquering, to conquer me permanently. That's the hate crime of sexual orientation. They divided me from my wife, and now they've removed her from the premises after she was a witness to a crime. That's retaliation based on my sexual orientation of heterosexuality. Yeah, these officers and Mormons, you guys are all going down in flames. You are pure hatred. These are hate crimes. You can't act out against anybody for not wanting to be Mormon. Now we have the hashtag DesNat Mormon group on Twitter who want to murder those who are apostates, as they call us, those who do not affiliate with the church. They want to force compliance with the church prophets. That's a hate crime. That's a terrorist organization. Mormons, terrorists. And so, yes, I'm concerned that those officers in West Valley City may be affiliated with this rising hate group, hate terrorist group. Based on my religious affiliation, based on my having been divorced, because that's apostate in the church. Remember, if you're divorced, if you're a single parent, that's going against the church. And so, the only one that didn't really fit was the racial one. I only have 1/64 black and even less American Indian and Ashkenazi Jew and Arab. I'm not sure exactly of the percentage in me, but yeah, that too. And so, yeah, those technically don't count, as we all learned from Elizabeth Warren. So technically I am white, and so if it's white going after white, it doesn't fully count as a hate crime. So these other hate crimes, however, do qualify. So yeah, I'm a victim of hatred. I'm a victim of hate crimes committed against me. That's how evil the Mormon Church is, guys. You've got to stop. You can't do this. You can't threaten other people. You can't spew your hatred comments on social media. You can't put thumbs down on social media when I am warning you that the church is promoting hatred, that the church is promoting the hatred and the violence that is ensuing, the actions that other Mormons are doing in response to the false teachings of the church, because the church does not have the keys of the priesthood. And I'm the one who has destroyed the church, because I have exposed that the church does not have the key of translation. For some reason, I got it, which is further proof that the church doesn't have it. They have no fruit of their ability to translate ancient documents. And I went over in the other video, Benson, in his first presidency statement about the King James Bible, said that he doesn't believe there are existing original documents of the biblical text. Because 25 years earlier, the church did get it. They've had it. And so President Benson's ignorance on that exposed him as being a fraud, not having the key of translation. And so I did my video about how the Egyptian documents are the origin of the biblical stories. I did the creation to Abraham in my video, and pointed out the Zeitgeist guys made the connection with the Gospels, and yeah, the church is toast. So Mormons, you have to leave. I'm sorry, the church is a bad influence on you. The church is a hate terrorist organization. They're committing crimes. They're committing abuses. They're committing hate crimes. I am a victim of their hatred. And it's being passed down to bishops such as Reed Hammond. I know where you live, Reed. Do you want me to expose it to others where you live? You know, this is what they do with sexual predators. They notify the neighborhood of sexual predators that are in your area. And so, yes, you're a hate crime abuser, Reed Hammond. And people need to know and be aware of your location, because you are guilty of hate crimes. And so, you know, this is not me calling for violence against you. This is me warning other people of your existence. So, yeah. And I know the mayor. I know he's Mormon. And his failure to respond or to send his officers, who then threatened me, sorry, they dragged you down too. Mayor Bigelow, Ron Bigelow. And yes, I know where you live too. So you guys are committing hate crimes against me. You can't do that. That's a no-no. And so, yeah, it's interesting because Ron Bigelow's son is no longer affiliated with the church. And so for me to no longer be affiliated with the church, and him knowing that I defended his neighborhood, I protect him even from criminal action of others in our neighborhood, because I was the neighborhood watch president, and I was the only one who would go out patrolling in my morning run and chased out the crime from the neighborhood for that year. And then the neighbors turned on each other, and then my sleep schedule changed because I went off the drugs, and that had an instant alteration on my ability to sleep through the night finally. And yeah, unbelievable. So yeah, Mormons are guilty of crimes, hate crimes. La 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 la. Mormons are getting nothing for Christmas. Jesus and Heavenly Father are mad. Huh. Because they've been nothing but bad. Alrighty, another start to the day, and it's a doozy. Mormons involved in hate crimes. Alrighty.